hcreates is an award-winning interior design studio in Shanghai, China, designing projects across Asia since 2010. hcreates collaborates with like-minded clients to design spaces that stimulate and inspire. They are well known for their restaurant, bar and office designs and take on a variety of projects from health and wellness to retail.
I think being a Kiwi, or even if you're just, even Australian, you design in quite a practical way. So yes, we design for every single client as individual, and you are taking their brief, and especially with something like F&B, often it can be very themed because they might have a food concept or they already have a strong idea, but it's about helping them edit their ideas down into something that is functional and practical, especially spaces like restaurants, which need to work well. They have to be also very practical. So I guess that's maybe less so in some retail spaces. And workspaces, a lot of the spaces we've done have been New Zealand companies. So we've been involved because they've wanted to have more of a New Zealand identity within the space. And obviously being from there, we've been able to help with bringing that in a way that's interpreted through materials and design and aesthetics. And then a lot of the other spaces that we've done, I think it's just sort of helping them interpret their ideas. And some clients do have many ideas.
I think, as a design company, we've been quite fortunate. There's always been a lot of work. There's always been lots of projects, and there's always new malls and new things opening. And so, there's always been lots of projects going on. And Shanghai has always been kind of pushing ahead in terms of China. I think more recently we've seen markets outside of Shanghai and China trying to catch up. So typically, even 4 or 5 years ago, going to Beijing, it didn't feel like there was that many modern or new concepts. There was kind of like traditional Chinese and then grungy beer places. And maybe that's sort of how people from Shanghai tend to view Beijing, but it certainly felt like there wasn't a lot of spaces. And we've seen now, we've done a couple of projects up there now, there is a sort of a desire to bring it up to an international level and behind kind of where Shanghai is, and we kind of feel that a bit from where the different requests come from. A city now that feels like it's going through that transition in quite a rapid way would be Shenzhen, where it's now really starting to have a lot more new concepts going on. And also, I think, skipping a few steps to not be, we want to be behind Shanghai. We've actually had clients come up to Shanghai and almost be a bit critical of what they see in Shanghai, going, it's not cool enough for Shenzhen, which is kind of surprising. So that's how there's always, it feels like there's new frontiers. And for us, I guess we've been quite lucky being in Shanghai. We've been able to pick projects that are close to us. And even working in Pudong sometimes feels like it's a bit far. And so if we've got the option, we kind of try and take stuff that's a bit closer, but easier for us to visit the site and try and stay on top of the quality of what's going on. Because I think one thing that probably feels like it hasn't improved as rapidly is maybe the contractors and actually the quality of build. So you've still got to actually be quite involved in the process. And one of the things you're always doing with F&B projects, as you take on inspiration internationally, you're using materials and textures in a way that aren't being used yet in China. So you may present something to a contractor, to a client, and they go, yeah, love it. Now you're trying to figure out how to build it with a team who maybe hasn't done that kind of thing before. So that's quite a challenging part, and I think that was something that was challenging 10 years ago that kind of still is a challenge even now.
Yeah, I think obviously we've got quite a large portfolio of work. And Shanghai, I find, is very word of mouth. But maybe that's how it is in all the other cities as well. But definitely now people, they find your work. And actually the queries that have come in from outside of Shanghai have mostly been because people have been searching and we have come up. So on different various platforms. It's I guess people look to Shanghai as as a place that's sort of, that it's being made. The city is very international. So, Chengdu is another one, and smaller places, Suzhou, Ningbo, Hangzhou, all of the smaller places are sort of, that's where our queries are coming from. And actually some come from other places that I actually don't even know where they are. But yeah, the main ones like Shenzhen and Beijing, they're very big cities themselves, and they're definitely, I would have said, caught up. They're just different cities.
Yeah, I think we've sort of had an interesting journey in that, because we started out doing pubs and then kind of breweries and brew bars. That meant that we ended up doing a lot of beer places, and people go, I like that beer place, can you help me replicate that beer place into my space? So you get a bit more of the, you're good at doing those, so keep doing those. So we'd have a couple of sort of scenes recently where it's felt like we're doing a lot of breweries and now a lot of bakeries. And that's sort of a second sort of wave of stuff that's coming through at the moment. So, and we'll continue to get, I think, requests around those two kind of, those themes for a little while, I think.
I'm very much a very reluctant business person. Hadleigh kind of pushed me into it, I feel, which is a good thing. But once you get started and you get, you just go through the steps. It seems daunting at first, I think, only because in China there's so much paper. It's daunting enough to go to the bank, let alone the amount of paper that you need to set up a company. But once you get started, and there's lots of people that are willing to help, which is a great thing about Shanghai. The communities here are very open about what you need to do, and people throw you lots of contacts. So for us setting up, it wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. So people recommend lawyers to help you set up the WAFI, and then they recommend accountants to help you, and visa agencies to help you through all of those processes. So now I feel like we have very good visa agency that does all of our staff, brings them on, takes them off when they need to be, all of the process that you sort of worry about, okay, that sort of could be something quite difficult. I think there's a lot of people and a lot of agencies here that are not crazy expensive, very reasonable, speak English, and have experience with small businesses enough for you to be able to, not worry about all those small details.
I think as we've gone through different periods with the company, we've come across things we're not sure. We've always sort of reached out to people and asked questions and just basically said, have you done something like this before? How have you gone through it? And I think one of the things that's quite interesting about doing business here is because the market is so big and there's so much opportunity, that even people who are directly competing with you recognise that there's very little chance you're actually competing on the same bit of territory or same project or same market. So even some people that we would thought would be, our biggest adversaries actually are more than happy to share information, share advice, talk about what they're up to, share contacts and things like that. So it's almost like that camaraderie of how do we do this together has actually been quite an important and quite a helpful part of sustaining our business here.
I think one of the things that we've sort of tried to do this year is a lot more Chinese or local social media. So there's so much of it that we don't delve into, and we're just sort of starting to scrape the surface. And I think you sort of don't realise the way that they find you. Like, they don't really do a Google search. And
for obvious reasons.
But they don't. It's not the same way as that we might research something. So we've definitely tried to start a bit more, social media in terms of writing more articles and putting them onto WeChat, and just also just looking into, okay, how do Chinese companies or consumers, how would they find you? That sort of thing. That's sort of something that's what we're kind of working on this year.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how important the informal networks are, and actually just, you don't really know who's going to help introduce you and how that word of mouth's actually going to work. And I think traditional advertising channels don't really work the same way in China as they may if we're back in Australia and New Zealand. So we actually spent a lot of time more this year kind of looking at how do we just be out there, because we never know if someone's friend is actually trying to do a space. And that kind of, for us it's like how do we be more present, top of mind kind of thing, without having to try and be too formal down a paid advertising channel or something.
I think there was a lot of clients that were hit hard and a lot of restaurants that closed that maybe weren't doing well before, and then COVID hit and then it was just too much. So, I mean, that's been pretty sad. But I think now people are slowly sort of thinking about new things and opening up or changing, new concepts to what they originally have. I just think the thing that's changed is that they're doing it in a way more budget conscious way. So a lot more efficient in their spend, and that includes design fees and design and how much they're willing to change or do. So it's good that it's kind of opening back up, but you definitely feel the cautiousness of it. They're doing it slowly.
But it's been interesting, I think, places that, especially people with multiple venues, have sort of looked at the profitability of each individual space and gone, this one wasn't that profitable and actually is going to be the slowest comeback, so why don't I just circumvent the next 6 difficult months and just remove that one and focus on shoring up the existing venues or looking for a new location that might be more profitable. So